What's up, Heat Nation? Your boy Ernest here, back with another Miami Heat Talk video. Not alone. I got your boy, Anthony DiNardo. My man, welcome to the channel. Appreciate you, my guy. How you doing?
I am great knowing that the fans, they gonna love what we got in store for them today. It's been an interesting week, and we gonna get into it.
Oh, we are, but gotta let the people know what we trying to do here, my guy. This is a two-parter. What we doing right here is part one. This is best case scenario for the Miami Heat moving forward. We defeated the Houston Rockets. We got 5 games left for the season. The Miami Heat right now, still 7th seed, but we're only a half game down from the sixth. You know we got the big one coming up this Sunday against Indiana. So my man, tell Miami Heat Nation, how confident are you going into this game on Sunday?
So this is actually great timing, right? Because you had hit me up and we kind of had planned this, little back and forth thing. Best case scenario, worst case scenario. And the reason the timing is great is because last game, the Heat had a demoralizing loss to the 76ers. And we're
Yup.
recording this just shortly after a very encouraging win versus the Rockets, right? So that sort of continues a trend of the roller coaster of the season, right? So if we're basing it off the trend of up, down, this game wasn't up. You would think you a smart man, Ernest. You
Oh
would think
yeah.
the next game is gonna be negative, and knowing this Miami Heat team, it's probably not gonna be great. I know the point of this video on your channel is to talk best case scenario, but before we get into that, I'll give my honest opinion. And truthfully, I'm gonna pick them to win comfortably because even though you've had up downs recently, you can see once they're starting to get bodies back, they are playing a better brand of basketball. Even as demoralizing as the last game was versus 76ers, that's a game that 2 weeks ago they would have got blown out. They
Yep.
go down 17-2 and they had the effort to fight back. That would not have happened, 2, 3 weeks ago. So
Yep.
now that they're getting bodies back, they essentially will have everyone outside of Josh Richardson, obviously. I look for them to have a very great effort on Sunday.
Absolutely. And one thing that I love seeing, and you know why the Heat want this. I feel they want the 6th seed. Kevin Love got his head banged up. You saw that big slash on the top of his
That
head.
Heat culture, baby.
He played. Terry Rozier, knee contusion. Normally you're out for a week. We knew how important this game was. He played. Jimmy Butler, the second night of a back to back, who'll be going to tennis games and riding horses, and Heat fans are calling for his heads. He played. He played. Boy Wonder came back. He played. All hands on deck. I feel that on Sunday, I know people are going to feel like for the last 2 years, especially during the regular season, the Miami Heat flop regular season games. I think the Heat know what we have to do. We know that Sunday's the most important game of the season, and I know the Heat are going to get this dub. I'm just confident, man. I really feel it.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up actually because going into today, before we got the injury report, I said all season, when the Heat get a guy back, they typically lose a guy, and they got this whole round table of injuries. And I said they got a good excuse to rest Terry. Got a little banged up yesterday. You're not gonna play him and Tyler. Kevin Love is old. He'll sit the back to back. Jimmy Butler, he played almost 40 minutes yesterday. He'll sit the back to back. But no, Spo said y'all are getting your ass on the court. He said you could walk, you play in this game because you got 5 games left to get chemistry going into the postseason, which is almost not enough. But I still feel like it's just enough. I guess it'll be 6 games total to kind of get used to this lineup, this rotation, and solidify everything so you're not figuring out rotations going into the playoffs.
Now, the funny thing you mentioned about the rotation, I noticed that Spo went 10 man deep tonight. You know, in the playoffs, Anthony, we saw it last year. Spo likes to go 8 man, maybe sprinkle a little nine. So I gotta ask you, my dog, like, tell the people out there, you think guys like Nikola Jovic, Haywood Highsmith, Jaime Jaquez, you think they're gonna see time on the playoffs? Or like, do you think Spo's gonna dwindle it down to like a maybe like a 7, 8 man rotation? I wonder what you feel about that, my guy.
Uh, this is the most interesting question, right? Because typically, I don't think it's just a Spo thing. Guys, coaches will play 8 deep in the playoffs. You don't really use your whole arsenal in that case. So if we count in locks, right, we'll go Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, Terry. That's 4. We'll say
Hmm.
Duncan is 5. If you want to put Nikola Jovic, he's been starting the last 20 games. I don't think that's by coincidence. That's 6, right? That gives you 6 right there. Who I didn't mention is Jaime Jaquez, Haywood Highsmith, Caleb Martin, Kevin Love. That's 4 names I didn't mention, giving you a total of 10. How the hell is Eric Spoelstra going to get that down to 8? Because Kevin Love, okay, he's a lock. You got to put him as lock. He's the only backup big. He's been playing insane the last 3 games, right?
Yep.
That's 7 right there. That gives you one more spot. Jaime Jaquez, we know he slowed down a little bit of late, but the boy was pretty damn good earlier this season. But you can't bench Caleb Martin. The Eastern Conference got robbed of the Eastern Conference Final MVP last year. You can't
That's
sit
true.
him.
That's
But
true.
we'll say Haywood Highsmith. Oh, the guy that's shooting 90% from 3 over the last 3 weeks, like and locking up the other team's best player. You sure as hell can't sit him. So I don't have an answer for you, Ernest.
I mean, it's matchup based. Like, okay, for example, let's say in the first round you don't get the 6th seed, you get the 7th seed, and you end up playing Milwaukee with Damian Lillard. You're gonna play Highsmith more because you need more defense out there. So maybe you don't play Jaime Jaquez. But if you play a team like New York, who's better defensively with OG Anunoby, he's gonna be locking down Jimmy. Josh Hart's gonna do his thing. So maybe you play a guy like Jaime Jaquez for his offensive presence more. That's why I like this roster, man. I mean, you can go 10 deep. You can sprinkle 8. You can play a different type of bench. You can play a different type of starting lineup, even though that's bonkers in the playoffs. But
Anunoby
you
came
can.
back today, by the way, so he'll be ready.
He
He played
did.
28 minutes tonight, so Thibs is not resting that kid.
No, and bro, you know what? Even if they don't have Randall, I still like the Knicks in the playoffs. The Knicks can make a nice second round run. You know, Donovan Mitchell's not 100%. The Knicks can make some type of noise. We can see the Knicks in the playoffs. Heat in 6, but still, like,
I will not. I know the Heat slowed down Jalen Brunson last week, but what he did to Miami in the playoffs last year, I will not overlook him because he killed Miami in that second round. He was doing whatever he wanted out there.
no, for real. Look, I joke around, but that team is scarce. Even without Julius Randle, it doesn't matter. We know what Julius does in the playoffs. He does not help much. So it's
I
not
think they're better
the
without him.
Knicks.
I think they're better without him. I was scared when I heard that yesterday. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I mean,
Oh,
look,
that boy Harten. That's more minutes for Hartenstein. He killed Miami the first round last year.
yeah,
Like
bro, the Knicks got size, and if there's one thing you're gonna do to beat Miami is bring size on them. That's what Denver did. If you're gonna beat Miami, you're gonna beat them with size. It's just gonna be tough to do in a 7-game series because you gotta beat us 4 times. We adjust defensively. We're able to pull things off and do a little things different. So here's another one I got for you, my guy. One thing I've been noticing: Duncan Robinson had a solid game tonight. 10 points, 2 for 5 for the 3-point line. But I'm noticing a little bit of sluggish going on. I know it's the back injury. I know he saw a back specialist, but this is best case scenario. So I'm thinking that we're riding with Duncan as a starting shooting guard moving into the playoffs. But and after what you saw tonight from Tyler Hero, do you think there's some point in the playoffs where Spo moves Tyler as a starting shooting guard?
Well, asking if I want to make one thing clear. Asking if I think Spo's gonna do it and if I would do it, that's 2 different things.
Two different
Listen,
things
I'm
here.
sure I know you agree with me on this. As positive as we are, and as much as we understand Tyler Hero's positive impact on this team, even we agree he's more optimal off the bench, right?
Yep.
So I don't know if well, I don't think Spoelstra agrees because he was kind of rocking with Tyler all year. So that makes me think that if he even gets the slightest opportunity, like the slightest reason to start Tyler, I think he would, right? Because right now he couldn't. You can't play a guy misses a month and bring him right back in the starting lineup. He couldn't. But if Duncan goes 2 games, shooting not so great, if the back starts to flare up a little bit, maybe if the Heat go down 2-0 in the series, I think he would. And at that
Yeah.
case, maybe he'd have to. And that's concerning because at that point, you will not have had a lot of sample size of him and Terry Rozier, which at this point, I'm not sold on that as a starting backcourt.
I mean, I think if Tyler Hero is doing this thing against the backups, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't think you make that change unless Duncan's at a point where it's getting worse. But I like Tyler where he is. I think as the 6 man coming off the bench, it's more lethal. If you're in the playoffs and you're playing against the second unit and Tyler's out there and you have a 5-point lead, I think Jimmy and Bam can stay comfortable on the bench. while Tyler's doing his thing. We can keep a lead. It won't get so bad. So by the time Jimmy and Bam get back, I don't think it's going to be as terrible. So I think the way we have it right now is fine. I think Duncan's going to be fine. This is best case scenario. So I feeling that the Miami Heat, all these injuries we've suffered throughout the season, all this heartbreak we had throughout the season, it is because now, when it's money time, we're finally getting a healthy team. Look at all these other teams. Knicks are breaking down. Freaking the Cavs are breaking down. You don't know what's happening with the Philadelphia 76ers. But now the Heat are healthy. What's going on? We're in bizarro world. The Heat are actually healthy. This is crazy, man.
Hey, hey,
Crazy.
shh. Hey, don't say it too loud. They listening. The Jinx Lord is listening.
So
I saw a funny tweet a couple days ago too. It was like some Knicks fan page, and it said having battle tested role players is just unfair. And some Heat fan replied with like Caleb Martin going off in the ECS, Gabe Vincent locking up Drew Holiday in the first round, and it's true because I think there's something to be said about going through the trials and tribulations of a regular season like this.
yep.
Because you've had guys get hurt, which guess what? Jaime Hawkins had games he had to play 35, 40 minutes. He's ready if the moment comes. You've had games where Duncan Robinson has had the ball in his hands 100 possessions. You've had games where he gets 3 shots a game. And I think preparing yourself for every single scenario is something that gives you just the slightest edge in the playoffs, and that could be critical.
That's a very good point. Very good point, my guy. That's why I love having you on here. Excellent. Okay, so here's another one I'm going to throw at you. This is best case scenario. Looking at the standings with 5 games left, is best case scenario for Miami Heat 6th seed? Or is there another better case scenario you feel?
So the Heat are 3 back of 3, right? So essentially, well, with 5 games to go, we'll say that's not likely. So we'll even go 4 because the fourth place Magic, they are 2 back of 4, right?
Yeah,
I know they've said the Heat had one of the easier schedules. I can run through the 5 games real quick. Obviously, we know Indiana, they need to win.
we have
Atlanta,
to.
they should win. You got a tough game versus Dallas, and then back-to-back games versus the Raptors, which that team's trying to lose. They actually just lost 15 straight before they beat the Bucks today. Did you see that? That they beat the
Oh
Bucks?
my God. Couldn't
So
believe it.
in the
Couldn't
last week,
believe it.
you've seen who the Bucks have lost to in the last week. The Wizards, the Grizzlies, and the Raptors. You talk about everything clicking at the same time for Miami. The Bucks is the opposite. Woo.
That's, bro, you know what? I know this sounds crazy, Anthony. I don't want to say this on here. I know it's best case scenario, but what if the Heat are noticing that? Like, I know Miami doesn't
And they're
feel Milwaukee in
positioning
the burst.
themselves for that 7 seed
I
to play the
mean,
Bucks.
is that crazy to say? Dude, look, here's one thing I will say. I don't know if you heard this, but Ethan Spolnick recently said on his podcast that the moment Milwaukee traded for Damian Lillard, Miami Heat top executives say, oh, they got worse. They got worse. I don't think the Heat are trying to get the 7th seed. You want a week off. You don't want to have to play
Yeah,
the play
yeah.
in. But I mean, if the Heat are looking at the Bucks as the 2nd seed and Miami's thinking, "Oh yeah, we can beat Milwaukee."
Well, I will note the Bucks are only 1 up of Cleveland in the loss column, so they could drop a spot too potentially. Uh, But yeah, well, I believe that report by the way too because I think the Heat execs saw what Jimmy did to Drew Holiday and said on your head and said if he did that to Drew, imagine what he's gonna do to Dave. It's not gonna be pretty for the Bucks. But I want to answer your question about best case scenario. I'll count the top 4 because they're 2 back over Orlando. We're talking best case scenario. If we'll talk worst case scenario on my channel. Don't
Oh
worry. If you
yeah,
think this is too optimistic, we got
part
something
2.
for y'all after this.
Part
But
2.
best case scenario, I could see the Heat winning out, right? Because of the last 5 games, you should win 3 of them. That's the Hawks
Yep.
and 2 Raptors games. You need to beat Indiana, and then you got to beat the Dallas team. Which, if we look at the Western Conference, Dallas is they're locked into. Well, they're not really locked into anything, so that would be a must-win game for them. So that's gonna be
Yep.
tough. But it is at home. They won on their home floor, so you got to win on yours. But
Yeah.
let's say they could beat Dallas. They almost beat them last time. Terry was there, got hot. But let's say the Heat went out. They won 6 straight. Yeah, you could be that 4th seed. my goal really is to just to finish top six because, like you said, with
Yep.
having the whole week off for rest, I think that's the most critical part. I don't think this Heat team cares if they have home court advantage, especially considering their home record is not great this year. But best case scenario, top four, right? It'll be nice
Top
to have a
four.
personal series at home.
All right. And here's what I want to ask you to get ready to close this out then. Uh, for best case scenario, would you say best case with seeing these last 5 games, 5 winnable games, is best case scenario 5-0, obviously, or realistically 4-1?
We'll say, yeah. I'm not gonna argue with that. I'm not gonna argue with that. But I'll say this because I want to get your opinion on this too. So we could kind of give our full wrap up on the best case scenario.
Yep.
Best case scenario, let's say we'll go realistic. Let's say that he go 4-1, and let's say that's good enough for because they're also 2 back of 5, right? But let's just say they finish 6. We'll go the most realistic here. They finish 6. If they play the current 3 seed Cavaliers, while that team scares me because of their size, we saw the Heat take care of them multiple times this year, right? So they could beat that team, and then that would put you into a second round series versus potentially any of the other top teams. It would it be Boston, right? I don't think they'd get Boston next. I don't know how the bracket works actually. Uh,
Well, I mean, I will say no. Go ahead and finish
well,
your
do you
question.
know
I'm
who the
sorry.
winner of 3-6 plays?
The winner of 3-6 plays the winner of 2-7.
Okay, so it wouldn't be the Celtics. So now you get to avoid the Celtics for one more round.
Mm-hmm.
2 is probably gonna be the Bucks coming out. There's no way a single Heat fan is scared of that team. So now you set up for once again another rematch in the conference finals versus the Boston Celtics. All time you're up what 2-1 on them, and the one you lost is because they said Max Strus stepped out of bounds 25 minutes late. So you could say you're up 3-0. You think Boston fans feel confident? I don't think so.
No,
And I could see the Miami Heat taking care of business once again because I think they're better on paper and on the court this year than they were last year. So why can't they win
absolutely,
again? Now you
absolutely.
set
Look, man.
yourself up for the NBA Finals. That's why, seriously, my opinion of best case scenario is this team going back to the NBA Finals and getting their ass kicked by the Denver Nuggets. But we'll worry about that when we get to the finals. Regardless, I think that'll still be a pretty fun season. And once you get to the finals, anything could happen. So that's my best case scenario.
It's the best team, but it's also who stays the healthiest. And I will say this, Anthony, the fact that we have had 36 different starting lineups, so many injuries, and the fact that we're still in this position, we're not a bottom team. We're still fighting for playoff positioning. We're still considered a contender. Because look at ESPN. They want to hop on the gravy train when we're doing okay. But everybody agrees in the 7 game series, you don't want to see this team. We're the most difficult to see. So I feel and I'm confident in this roster, especially now. Tyler's back. Kevin Love is back. Jimmy's missed some time, but he's back. But these players are a lot more fresh. And I know that in the playoffs, they're going to make some noise. And I'll tell you this, bro. I want Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's why
I
I
ain't
want
scared.
6th or 7th. I don't it's not that I'm scared for Boston. That's why I don't want 4th or 5th. It's because I don't want Boston in the second round. I'm a pro wrestler, my dog. I love storylines. I love the story. Miami and Boston, this is becoming Miami, New York in the 90s. This is Boston, LA in the 90s. Boston fans hate me, Anthony, with a passion and it's reciprocated. It's cool, but it's fun, bro. We're living in the moment. I love it. So I want Boston in the Eastern Finals. We can't get 2, we can't get 3. Give me 6 or 7, and I think we're fine.
Well, so best case scenario then. You same as me? You think they can win it all?
Heck yeah. Hell yeah. 100%. Just as long as we're healthy. As long as we're healthy. I know we didn't fix the big problem, but why did we lose to Denver last year? We couldn't crack 100 points. Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier and Nikola Jovic fixes that problem. And bro, I know you said what you said about Denver. Don't forget the last game. What happened? Nikola Jovic started, which didn't happen the first game. And what happened with Jokic? He didn't have the game that he always had. I don't know.
I don't even remember that,
Maybe
to be honest with you.
Maybe Jovic is something different we have. He can play a different way. I don't know. It's one game, bro. I don't want to get too optimistic and be cocky Heat fan, But I'm just saying, bro, I'm confident in this roster, not because I'm delusional, because the proof is in the pudding. Look what we've done. 3 Eastern Conference Finals, 2 NBA Finals runs with Jimmy Butler, who people said when he chose us over Philadelphia, he wouldn't even make the playoffs. Come on. Come on.
I'm gonna leave you. I'm gonna leave y'all with this. I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to everyone watching this video who might not have the guts. If there's one reason, everyone, turn your volume up. This is very important. All right.
Come on.
If there's one reason to be confident in your Miami Heat going into this playoffs, is because your team has Jimmy Butler and the rest of the league doesn't.
Facts. And we're going to close that out right there. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to know what you think. We gave you 20, which I feel was positive, glorious minutes. Anthony, thank you so much for jumping on. Please, please let the people know where they can find you, my guy.
Yeah, man. I'm sure Ernest will put the link to my channel down below.
Of
I got my handle
course.
down here too on Twitter at AnthonyD_Heat if you want to keep up with me there. But most importantly, come over to part 2 on my channel where I'm sure we haven't recorded it yet, but I'm sure we'll get very, very negative because I'd say worst case scenario is probably the complete opposite, just to give y'all a sneak peek. So make sure y'all come over to my channel, subscribe to my boy Ernest, and subscribe to my boy, to myself as well, because we got a ton of more content coming after this video.
Yeah, guys. And y'all, everybody, Miami Heat Nation, my squad, don't forget, help your boy Anthony out. Click the like button, click the subscribe button, follow him on Twitter. Y'all know the drill. Thank you so much. Don't forget, we got part 2 coming up. This was best case scenario. We were putting a positive spin on it. Next video, it's not going to be so positive. So for those pessimistic, negative people, you're going to love this. Haters, trolls, get on it. You're going to love it. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And that is enough said. Thank you, Anthony.